Hello folks and welcome to Tippcast with myself Shane Stapleton, as ever joined by the head of sport and Nina Guardian Shane Brophy. We're here to talk all things Tipperary as ever. We're as blue and gold as they come really, Shane, if we're honest about it. But
oh yeah, absolutely. Biased as hell.
Yeah, well look, first off, we might as well mention that the Nina Guardian is on sale now. It's in all good books or shops locally. And you can see there, one of the main things being covered is the severity of Seamus Kennedy's knee injury. So read all the latest on that. But broadly speaking, Shane, it's not looking great for Seamus Kennedy. The championship is really close down the tracks, and race against time at best.
Yeah. I know he was due to meet a consultant in Santry yesterday to I suppose ascertain the full situation. I know that there was knee damage. I think that was the initial MRI scan that there was damage. So look, best case scenario, it's a minor tear, but you're probably talking 8 to 12 weeks maybe. But you're 7 weeks till we play Limerick. And your worst case scenario, his year is done. Maybe if he does a David Burke, he might get back for the back into the club championship. But just a sickener. The few of us were in the stadium. You knew straight away. I don't know. If it was copped at home straight away, just non-contact injury and crumpled to the ground, you just one of those is not good. Look, you're hoping against hope. It's not too severe, but I suppose you're fearing the worst at this stage.
Yeah, really, he's such a crucial player. He is the modern hurler. Even going back to when he first won an All Ireland around 2016, he can do it all. He's composed on the ball. He's a big man. He's unbelievably mobile. You can play him anywhere. He's a Swiss Army knife, and that's a huge blow for Liam Cahill because
he's very good at the modern game. Where he's probably the one aspect that we were probably weak on. He's probably the one player that does the Limerick thing very well, where he can drift into space, provided he's picked out. The way the Limerick are very, very good at filling gaps, but they generally always find each other. Whereas Tip probably are not as good as it, but Kennedy's the one that is able to read the game, where he's able. I drift into space. At least I'll give the option of somebody finding me. Look, he started the other night at wing back. He can start at wing forward if you want. One of those sort of guys. He's played full back too. He's just one of those guys. He's nearly. I think I've had it in my piece. He's one of the first names on the team sheet. He's just so reliable and so dependable. So fingers crossed, it's not too bad.
Yeah, it finished up 26 points to 316. Did you come away from it feeling positive or negatively? Because you were down there, so you can sort of read the mood music. I know it was, there wasn't that big of a crowd there and all that. It can kind of distort things a little bit. But did you come away from it feeling a little bit apprehensive for the year ahead?
A small bit deflated, because I thought I didn't come away thinking, okay, we've definitely hit on something that we could use against them down the road. It was a 1 point game, but I would say I'd say a true reflection of the match was it was 26 scores to 19. I think that was a truer reflection. Once Jason Ford got, even when Tip were sort of on top in the first half, you never felt we were fully flowing. Jason Ford, brilliant goal, 5 points up, and then just Limerick hit us for 4 in a row. They're just a machine. Bonner Maher's goal as well, it was taken. It was against the run of play, but then they come back and hit 4 points in a row. They're just, I think that they're one. I don't know. They just seem to have every base covered. Whether it's psychologically, whether it's physically, whether it's tactically, they just know what to do. And they have every eventuality covered before they go out in the field or when they're preparing.
Yeah, both teams made plenty of changes here. When it comes to championship, you would be imagining 3, 4, 5 changes on either team, and the depth. I mean, you have to be realistic. The depth in the Limerick team is that bit stronger. So once you're dipping into the panel, there probably should be more of a gap heading towards Limerick. So, I look at it and I think,
they're a systems-based team that a lad can plug in and they don't miss a beat, which is very, very hard to stop. You can put in an inferior player, but once he knows how to play the position, he doesn't look an inferior player, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. But like, you think about some of the games in recent years that Tipperary would have had against Limerick. And then, like, okay, so I'm thinking the Munster final, obviously 2021, they went on the 16-point turnaround. You look at the year after when Tipperary supposedly did well enough in Colin Bonner's year, it was 2-8 to 4 down the stretch, maybe the last quarter of the game. You look at what happened to Galway last year in the All-Ireland semi-final. After 25 minutes, I think they lost the rest of the game by 15 points. You look at Kilkenny, the game was done with 20 minutes to go. Teams are generally beaten out the gate with 20 minutes to go. Their energy is sapped, the whole lot. But I would be encouraged, and look, Tipperary were definitely second best, no question about it. But I would be encouraged by the fact that Tipperary kept going and got it back very close late on. And I mean, in between the 1-1 that was scored late on, you also had a chance for Dan McCormick that went wide. Now, it would have been daylight robbery if Tipperary had to get a draw out of the game. But the point is, Tipperary stayed going. And that in itself is something that Liam Cahill can point towards and say, look, lads, if you stay going, the chances will happen. You know, it might just
like Limerick don't, like 3 goals, like that's an anomaly for Limerick to concede. And you think they had two of their 3 members of their full backline. You probably think Barry Nash was the only one that was missing of their first choice. So Sean Finn has to come back. Apologies. So, like, you're probably thinking Nash and Finn would come back. So, but look, I think everybody's trying to figure out what to do. And I know there was a lot of focus last week on Tip's bad record in second halves against Limerick, but Limerick are doing that to everybody in the second half. So it's not just us. Like, how many times are in all games have Limerick been a point or 2 down at half time and they end up winning the second half, bar maybe playing Clare relatively comfortably. Like, so look, that's something everybody's trying to figure out. I do think
just there's that stat you were talking about, Colin Keys from the window. Better look to the scoreboard for Tip at the end there. With 13 games now, they haven't won a second half against John Kiley's Limerick. Before half-time, Limerick are minus 26. After half-time, Limerick are plus 74. So that comes back to the other point that I made a little while ago, that teams tend to be sort of broken and they're folding up tents with 15 minutes to go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And even though we got the good start at the start of the second half with Ford and Tynan's points, but like it was like as Limerick changed things up in the second half, like they're the speed at which they move the ball, like I'd say a lot of, definitely in tight zones, players are encouraged to hand pass the ball within half a second, 1 second. That they make sure the ball is gone before a Tipperary player or an opponent can get it in a challenge, and they're very, very good at switching the play. Like, there's no doubt it's a draining game for a team to play when they're trying to defend that. And then, of course, in the last 15-20 minutes, their half back line sits back, their midfield sits back. They leaves loads of space for their inside forwards for them to ping quality ball in. And we saw Adam English, Seamus Flanagan, Graham Mulcahy all get good scores from, because they loads of space to run into, as if all their team players look at the clock on 50 minutes and say, okay, we're all sitting 5 yards deeper. Like, so I think I was thinking about it a lot the last few days, and I think everybody's tried something different against them. But I do still think it comes back, the best way to beat him, if you do, I think, is the Clare way. I just think, and it reminds me of how St. Thomas's took down Ballygunner. You've nearly got to sell out and just be completely frantic against them. You push up, you play 15 on 15, you play 3 in the full forward line. You do not give them the short puck out, because they're so comfortable at working the ball up the field, especially with the overlap. If you give them an extra man, they'll create the overlap.
But at
least if Nicky Quaid is forced to go along with a puck out, there's a chance it could turn into a 50-50 ball. It'll break and you might win the break. Whereas if you concede a sharp puck out, 100% of the time they're going to win the first, if not the second balls.
Yeah, the flip side, though, is if you push up too far, I do think you have to drop a little bit, because I keep referencing the 2022 All-Ireland final. Kilkenny pushed up to the 21, and then the movement out the field meant that Limerick just annihilated them on puck outs. And it's one thing getting annihilated short, but getting annihilated long means points straight away.
Maybe not completely push up. I'd definitely say man on man.
Okay, do you know what's another thing? I think.
But I know Limerick would probably try and create a way where they get Hannon to sit and maybe have a 7th defender. But I definitely think the best way is to go make the field as big as possible. Like, I don't think any team is going to win a battle where 20 lads are in the middle of the field and there's limited room. I don't think that's the best way for Tip to beat a Limerick. I think Tip need to open up the field completely, as much space as possible.
Yeah, but like still when it comes down to it, it's going to be war for the ball. So you need to have numbers in where they are. And if you're going to try and stop their triangles, you need to have players in close to them. I don't think there's a way around straight up warfare. But like you also need to pick 6 defenders whereby everyone's able to has the speed and the athleticism to go man to man. And again, losing James Kennedy is huge there. But after Bonner leveled the game and it was 18 points to 212, and like you made the reference to it being 26 scores to 19. I mean, Tipperary were chasing the game at that stage. They were sort of running on fumes to some degree. And Conor Bowe had a great puck-out catch just after. And then, it's just a composure thing. He ended up blasting a shot wide off balance. And look, I thought he was good. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan. But straight away, like from there on, the hour mark up until the end of the game, I think Limerick created twice as many chances, something like 13-7. And Tipperary were sort of running on fumes a little bit.
Yeah, they did that against Kenny last year in the final, didn't they, as well? Like, they certainly had about 10 shots. Like, they went from 20 points to 30 points very quickly in the last 10 minutes or something like so.
Yeah, and you look at how the scores were conceded as well, or some of them. It was sort of like pressure as well in Tipperary, maybe to some degree, sort of hitting the skids a small bit.
Yeah.
One came from like Michael Breen. He was done for a throw and ball. Now, obviously it's very hard to know what the throws, they're all thrown, but he was done for throw ball over the bar. I think Jason Ford was intercepted by Keane Lynch. It led to a free that was popped over. Ronan Maher had a slip. There was a short puck out. And then even I think of Seamus Flanagan's point.
Yeah, there's off a puck out that we complete, like, but Nicky Quaid, like, I don't know, like, we completely switched off there. Like, there's nobody, like, Quaid knew nearly, or as if it's pre-programmed, as if Quaid knew that was where to go, because it looked so pre-programmed and it was too easy, like, so.
Yeah, but I think that's just the force of their athleticism and how well repped they are. Like, you remember going back to 2018, the time that Tipperary first started to lose to Limerick, and it was down at the Gaelic grounds. And I remember Quaid was doing those puck-outs back then when he was hitting the full forward line, which was coming out around 30 yards.
Yeah.
And like, that's the trouble. When it comes to the 60th minute, you've made all your changes. Sorry, 70th minute, or maybe even 75th at that stage. It's very hard to just keep with them. Like, the pressure that Ronan Maher and, Craig Morgan and Michael Breen have been under. So it's tough. Like, so you need a really strong panel. To be fair, like, Tipperary compared it last year, and I know he didn't play the other day, but you've got Barry Heffernan back. You've got Paddy Cadell back. He was midfield, and then he was man marking Keane Lynch. And what I'd say for him is, like, he needs a run of games, obviously, to get back to fitness. But will he ever be played in what I consider as his natural position, which is centre back? And that is an area where Tipperary have big question marks at the moment. You also have Willie Connors, who didn't play. Craig Morgan is back fully fit. Owen Connolly has been a big find this season. Conor Bowe, wing back, he's added the athleticism and pace. And Sean Ryan, the ball is sticking up front, a player you hurled it for a long time. So if you look at the positives, Tip kept going, and Tip have exposed a lot of players to what it's going to take.
I there was a lot of, I suppose, we were wondering last week, we all wanted Tip to win, but there was no way Tip were going to sell out last week and put their best 15 out. It was like, if you're open to maybe, I suppose, the deflation thing, if you go out and with your full strength and lose, like, what do you fall back on? So look, I thought it was tough on Paddy Cadell, like his first minutes of the year, I think, like, to be thrown in there against Limerick. And you could see in the early going, he just wasn't sharp enough. And look, he needed that game. Like, he will have come on for that. I've no doubt. Look, I think there's no doubt, like, Brian McGrath has all the skills, but he just lacks that pace, I think, to play at that 6th position. And maybe you could play him at 5 or something, and maybe get him to man mark, maybe a Gerard Hegarty or something. He's definitely not a 6 for me. Like, so, midfield, like, was Owen Connolly going to be there long term? I think Willie Connors will definitely be in there. I think I still come back to the Noel McGrath thing. Is it worth looking at Noel? Could on the 28th of April see Noel McGrath as your centre back, as your 6, your floater? Like, I still think with his vision, his composure, he wouldn't panic in an awful lot of those situations. Like, so it's.
But you're guaranteed you have to play a sweeper if you're doing that, because
probably,
you're not going to mark Keane Lynch.
Yeah. Like, Yeah, it's.
But like,
I just my thinking of what I was saying about you go man for man and stuff like. Are you better off against Limerick, lose by 12? Like, play your own game and lose by like someday. Okay, if they get space, they blow you away. But I just don't think trying to crowd an area out is the way to do it, because they'll just work around you anyway. Maybe we're better off play 6 forwards, try and create as many one-on-one matchups up front as we can, rather
than... That's not going to happen, because they're going to crowd their backline. It's just not going to happen. You have to match them number for number everywhere. Otherwise, they'll crowd you out. They'll run the ball up the field.
But they don't do that in the first half.
Doing nothing. Yeah. You have to press up on them. You can't not.
Oh, I know that, but as I say, you go man for man. You don't give Cathal O'Neill. You don't allow them a +1 or a sweeper back there.
Yeah, but that means that you can't play a sweeper either, and you have to press up.
But I think that's the risk you take. Clare don't play a sweeper against them. Okay, they fell short, but they were neck and neck with them.
Yeah, but they press up on them. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
but like I think that's
the best. I think that's the best way to do. Someday, like, I do think the day they're caught will be something similar to what Offaly did in '82 and what Wexford did to Kilkenny back in 2005. It'll be a last gasp goal where maybe they're slightly off it and you hit them with a last puck of the game, and that'll be it. I do think you've got to be brave against them.
Yeah, but there's a big 70 minutes to come before you ever get to that last second winner. Like, I don't think you can afford to sit off them. So like, it's got to be six, maybe 8 up the field when they're trying to work the ball out the back, and it's got to be 12 in your own half, and you don't. You just have to have lads who are going up and down all day. There's no way around it, because they are going to keep working up and down the pitch all day. You have to match them for work rate.
But the point I'm making about making the pig feel as big as possible is that, like, there was times on Saturday night where you had 2 players in the full forward line on one side, 2 on the other, and a goalie. So that's 6 players. That's 20. You had probably 24 players in the middle of the field. I don't think that will get the best out. I think Tip need as few players around the middle of the third, if you know what I mean, to tin it out. If you do get the ball, at least you're not running. If you're only running into 2 Limerick players rather than 3, it's slightly easier to work the ball up the field. Like, tin it out a small. That's the point I'm making.
Yeah, but they're not going to compromise their shape.
I know that.
Shape no matter what. So, I mean, I think that's a great idea in theory, but you're going to get beaten by 15 points. You have to front up, match up.
There'll be some day where it works and you end up beating.
It'll never work. It'll never work, shit. You have to go for them. You have to match them physically. I'm
not saying you don't have to match them physically, but you're playing their game.
But there's no way around it. Like, back in 2010, Tipperary had to play Kilkenny's game.
The team that beats them will get around it. And I do think it's pushing up. It's a minimum 2, if not 3, in the full forward line, where you can, at least if the ball goes in, you make it stick. And like, I would be, after Saturday night, I'd be thinking, would it be a bad idea to have Bonner and Sean Wright play 2 of your inside forwards, your best ball winners, and maybe have Morris and Keogh and Ford coming the other way. If they hold the ball up, at Morris and Ford and Keogh maybe are coming onto it, and are, like, we saw how good Jake Morris was in the last 10 or 15 minutes. We got on the ball in the front foot, heading towards goal. Like, so feeding maybe Bonner and Sean Wright holding it up.
But you need someone to win the ball. Like, Limerick are more athletic than everybody. So if you stretch out the pitch, that's only going to make it easier for them. So you keep 2 max near goal.
It's easier to try and play 1 player than 2.
What's that?
It's easier to try and take on 1 player than 2.
Yeah, but that's the
point I'm making.
They're just going to own the ball out there around the middle if you don't have numbers out there to compete with them. If you have 2 or 3 stuck close to goal, fine too. But other than that, everyone else needs to be in there fighting for the ball. I just don't think you've got to.
But I do think that Clare don't compromise their principles. Clare don't play a sweeper against them. Clare definitely play at least 2 in the full forward. I do think.
But they're more athletic.
The way to do it is to, and I don't think Clare are more physical than Tipperary.
They're more athletic.
Not by much.
Tony Kelly, David Fitzgerald, Ryan Taylor's obviously injured, but these lads have wheels. Diarmid Ryan. I mean, I think that's where we're kind of, like, Tipperary are populating the team with a lot of physical players who can get stuck in. Hence Owen Connolly.
But I would say the way Tipperary played last Saturday night, will that ever be good enough to beat Limerick? Will we ever beat Limerick playing that way?
I think we're getting closer. I'm not saying we're going to beat them, but we're getting closer. To me, it's just getting more and more used to playing them and trying to get it from 40 minutes to then getting to 50 minutes to 60 minutes to 70 minutes and having the panel to do it. And I named some of the players that are back. Like if you're bringing on, Barry Heffernan, Willie Connors, a couple of other lads who hadn't started the last day out, I think you're going to get more and more impact off your bench. Give Cadell a couple more games. Dan McCormick's only just back. I'm not saying Tipperary are going to beat Limerick. Limerick are probably going to do the drive for 5. It's odds on. But I think we're getting closer this way than any other way. That'd be my thought on it. Yeah. But anyway, in general, the spectacle. Anyway, you were fairly sickened with the spectacle. You've done a column in the Guardian.
I thought the first half was dreadful on Saturday night. I think I could tell you. Okay, it was a dirty night down there. It was cold. It was wet. But Jesus, I think if anybody was talking to the halftime, couldn't believe how poor it was. Like it's just the overuse of the hand pass, and I even noticed that. I thought. I'm looking for every year what are Limerick doing differently. They're definitely using the brick flick more this year. Like so, there's definitely that's another element where they're trying to find a marginal gain. Like second half it picked up a bit, but I'm not in love with the game at the moment. I'm not in love with where I don't sit down on a Sunday and watch 2 hurling matches like last Wexford and mine and looking forward to them. Like Clare and Kilkenny was a bit exciting because there's a bit more stick pass and teams looking to play a good 40-50 yard ball in, but otherwise at this, and then they end into the Waterford-Wexford game. Jesus Christ, like come on, like Wexford and Waterford not pressing 3 points down and more or less allowing Wexford to pass the ball around their own half of the field. Like it's I don't know, it's not hurling for me. Like I remember it was a Saturday night, Michael Breen won a good 50-50 battle with Donegal Dowling in the first half, and with the great sort of cheer from the Tip crowd, and you just wanted him to open his shoulders and leave it 100. And he couldn't do it because you're not trained to do it that way. Anymore. Like, and I'm just worried about all this coaching. It's taken too much excitement out of the game, if you know what I mean. That's my worry. I'm not saying it's any. I think it's way more skillful now because, like, what Limerick are doing is, it's very like that's to do what they're doing is constant repetition and skill. Like it's high level. Like what they're doing with the passing and stuff. Like if they fumble or if they make a mistake, a la what Tom Morrissey did at the end, you can be punished. You'll be badly punished. But when it comes off, it's very, very effective. But I don't find it very exciting.
Yeah, bit Man City-itis.
Yeah,
a bit too much perfection to it.
And maybe there's a few people in Limerick can think this is not a crib at Limerick. They're very, very good at what they do, but it's not very exciting.
Yeah. Do you see? But like, can hurling go any other direction? I'm not even sure there's any rule that'll change.
That's the problem. Like it's more and more coaches are starting to like they're dissecting every element of hurling now. Like it's been broken down to its nth degree, which it probably was always going to happen, but I suppose it's all for the chase for the results, is it? Teams don't mind how they win as long as they win.
I'll put it to you this way: like last year when you were on the run with Laura and you had a great year, did it ever once cross your mind what's the quality of this game like to watch?
Not particularly, but a lot of the games where we weren't. I'd say that the inter-county disease hasn't come down to club yet, but that's not to say it won't.
Yeah, but like the point I'm making is no management team ever thinks, no. Is this a good spectacle or not? And like the people out there who would say, "Oh, ban the hand pass" or anything like that, it'll make no difference. It might make some difference. It might lead to more rucks because lads will try brick flicks in traffic, and then all of a sudden you've got a ruck for 15 seconds. But the reason that I don't think it works is look at how often Limerick, and everyone's going to copy what Limerick are doing. Limerick get a ball, they do a little hand pass laterally, then they do a hand pass back or brick flick backwards, and then deliver a nice diagonal ball up the field for one of their brilliant forwards to get on. Doesn't need hand passes. 2 little brick flicks and the ball is backwards because they're almost moving the ball away from traffic to give it to somebody who's standing up and has the full field of vision in front of them. And a hand pass rule isn't going to change that. And we want contests all over the field.
Yeah.
But like, you're not going to come up with a rule that ensures that you need to have 3 players up here and you need to keep, have only so many players in certain parts of the pitch.
But like,
hurling will either figure itself out or it won't.
No, and I do think what's needed is pretty simple. You enforce the current rule. If it means one National League campaign is absolutely sabotaged with 50 frees a match for throwing, then so be it, because coaches and players will have to cop on to say, I can't throw anymore, because they're throwing now because they know the referee's not going to pull for it. How many did Liam Gordon pull for 2 or 3 the other night? There must have been about 40 or 50 throws. It's because, like, I keep hearing this excuse that if it's a millimeter off your hand, it's a hand pass. But that the rule is clear and obvious striking action. A millimeter off your hand is not a clear and obvious striking action. It's more of a roll, really.
Well, look, a couple of weeks ago we sort of picked our summer 15s, and I had a bit of a boo-boo there because I had left Brian O'Mara out of the team, someone who was a guaranteed starter as far as I'm concerned. But would your team have changed too much based on what we've seen in recent weeks?
Not particularly. Like, we haven't seen Cathal Barrett yet. I thought last Saturday was a big game for Barry Hogan, because I'm still not sure they're 100% nailed on with Reese as their number one. I thought it was interesting, the little clip we saw at the very end of the match with Liam Cahill chatting to Barry Hogan at the final whistle, as if more to what did you see and things like that. Look, Limerick make it very, very difficult to get puck outs away, but I do still think it's one element that Reese has over Barry, is that he's prepared to take a chance. And I think you have to be prepared to take a chance with a risky puck out against them to get the ball into play, or maybe get into an area where you can cause trouble for Limerick. So I would have thought maybe last Saturday, like, Barry had nothing to do with shot stopping, and I suppose it's the one maybe area where you'd have to be very happy with the league so far, particularly the 2 matches against the Limerick and Galway matches. Did we even give up a goal chance in those 2 matches? I don't think we did. Like, the Aaron Gallan chance was probably a point. I think maybe there were 5 or 6 up at that stage, and he thought he'd try his hand at a spectacular goal, and it never came off. But
same against Dublin, no real goal chances after
Yeah. So like that, you have to be encouraged from that point of view that we're not conceding an awful lot of goal chances. Look, you're looking up front, like, you're probably thinking, okay, Seamus Kennedy's, we might put it back up there. I think Seamus Kennedy probably has to come out of the team now. So who do you start? Like, yeah, sure, look, we already, Connor, like, it's an interesting, you're probably looking at Dan McCormack. I know you with Dan in your team. Dan is probably the next in line. And like, I do think there will be horses for courses kind of games. And like, I think last Saturday and his impact off the bench, I think Bonner Maher has to start against Limerick. I'd even say to him, Bonner, you're starting against Limerick. You won't be starting against Waterford. Doesn't matter. We saw last year, playing Limerick and playing Waterford are completely different, I think. So you nearly say, okay, we get Bonner right for Limerick, and we nearly know he's not going to start against Waterford, or if he does, he'll be coming off the bench or something that you try and maximise. I just thought against Limerick last year, Bonner was very, very good, and I thought when he came off the bench the other night, the ball tended to stick more, and Limerick found it harder to get the ball out quicker when he was in there, and with Sean Ryan as well.
Yeah, just in terms of some of the half forwards, like Grode O'Connor scored 3 points, but probably not as impactful as you'd hope, and maybe the bang in the head that he got played a part in that.
Conor Rogan nearly caught as well, like, so that didn't help things either, like, so.
Yeah, Alan Tynan probably needs to be producing a little bit more. It doesn't feel like he's hit top gear so far this year, and I mean that's the thing with the decent squad there. He'll probably have to produce it pretty soon, or someone else might get a shot in ahead of him. Conor Stapleton, I thought, was very good. The amount of energy that man expends over 70 minutes. And I'm sure there's people out there saying, oh, he didn't score or whatever. Well, I'll tell you, the amount of scores that Limerick didn't get because of the pressure.
Well, I did do something interesting. Liam Cahill said afterwards that we didn't bring the right amount of energy. And I do agree with that. That's why I think we didn't completely sell out. Like, we didn't. I'd say we're about 90% of our energy levels you need to be against Limerick. And I do think if we come the championship, I think we'll definitely see May a way more sharper, hungrier, fired up Tipperary team on the 28th of April than we did see last weekend. Was it's like it needs to be complete energy. It needs to be nearly manic, like what Clare do. It's just complete frantic stuff altogether.
Well, like Cahill was saying, and this he's talking about Limerick, and he says, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Limerick didn't do anything that Limerick don't do every day they go out. They didn't come with anything extra special. To be fair to Limerick, they're just so good and so consistent at what they do. I can't say that we didn't know what was coming, but we just weren't able to counteract it again today. Call a spade a spade. We have to go away and look at it and work on it and keep chipping away at it and find the answers. I mean, from my point of view, that was going to be always going to be the case even before the match was played. You just need to get out there, get used to it, kind of have your head stuck underwater for 70 minutes, see who can survive and go again. So Antrim this weekend, you'd imagine this is good. And by the way, just in terms of like the table and scoring difference and all that, it will be a case of scoring difference from the table overall rather than just a mini league if a few teams finish on the same points.
I was double checking that. I do think it's a bit mad that how there isn't a national rule across the board for score difference, like club, county, colleges, everything. Like, and why? Like, I know, and I did check up the motion, that the Burgess motion that passed the Congress. It was tied to club, but I don't understand why it can't be consistent across the board. Because I think it's fairer across the board. It means you don't have to run up scores against inferior teams. Like, and I don't think that does anything for hurling. Like, I just think, and like, okay, maybe it's not maybe in like Tip at the moment under the club rule would be true. And I know it's nothing to do with that. I just think it should come down to the matches between Tip, Limerick, and Galway to decide who gets through, rather than who ran up a score against Dublin, Antrim, and Westmeath. You don't know from one game to the other which of those three teams had injuries or maybe put out a second string or something like that. So that's why I think it would be fair. But look, it really is.
We have to go out and try to absolutely hammer the living daylights out of Antrim this weekend. Because
talking 35 points, that's not realistic, really. You're really hoping for Limerick to get at least a draw or a win in Pearse Stadium. Like, that's what Tipper. Look, the Limerick match will be over, I suppose. That's a 1:15 throw in. We're at 3:00. So look, if we did have to chase the score, we would know what to do.
Just so people know, at the moment, Limerick are plus 52, Galway are plus 59, Tipperary are plus 22, and Limerick are 2 points ahead of both Tipperary and Galway.
So like Tipperary are, just say if Galway won by 1 point, I'd have to get to 58. Tipperary would have to win by
37 points.
That's not realistic. Not a hope. Like, so, I would assume he'll go strong this weekend, but potentially it could be our last hit out before the championship. So I suppose with injuries, like, will this be the game for Cathal Barrett to come back? Like we've seen Noel McGrath fleetingly. He was named on the bench on Saturday night. Just double check here. He was named on the bench, so he didn't get game time. Probably be a nice game maybe for Cathal Quinn and Sean Kennelly, maybe to get more minutes into them. I think Willie Connors might have been carrying a knock. That's why he wasn't considered last weekend. So, look, hopefully we'll get the results we need to get through. And it would look like if we do get through, it'd be against Clare in the semi-final. So I think last year, I think it was, well, I wouldn't say neutral venues, but the Tip ended up winning their group and had to go to Limerick because of home and away agreement. So, but like, I don't think Cahill would mind if Tip got through it that I had to go to Clare. I think they'd welcome the extra game. Like, so I do think that the one thing on current form, it looks like a Clare Limerick final 2 weeks before the championship. I'd say the GAA are absolutely terrified of that thought.
Yeah, and do you know, I was actually looking at the result between Antrim and Tipperary 2 years ago. Remember that game in Thurles with 7 goals? Tip won by 29 points that day. So there has been evidence in the past of running up a big score, but I mean, the prospect of it is kind of ugly. And look, who knows? I mean, Darren Gleeson knows Tipperary pretty well. He'll want to get a serious performance out of his Antrim team, and like, obviously he'd be hoping that they would they'd have probably gathered a couple of more results at this stage. But, they should have beaten, say, for example, they should have beaten Dublin. They were close enough that day out. You look at their scoring difference otherwise. Look,
I know they weren't at full strength against Westmeath. I think they had a Ulster under 20 match last weekend, and a couple of the younger players were sent to that. And probably not a good result for them losing to Derry, but it's probably encouraging to see Derry maybe beginning to move again at underage level up there. So, look, it's been a tough campaign for Antrim, and look, we think we all feared it with the couple of the key guys, the Keelan Malays and stuff that then stepped away, and Ian McMahon's retiring. So, look, I'm looking forward to going up on Saturday. I haven't been to Corrigan Park yet, so hoping. Look, you're fully expecting Tip to win, and I suppose seeing what happens in Pearse Stadium, you probably think that the fact that Galway are without probably two of their better players, Conor Whelan and Dahi Burke, you would assume they haven't a leg to stand on in terms of an appeal. But some days when you're not expected to win and you're down a couple of key bodies is the day maybe Galway could do something and maybe get the result they want. You just don't know. I would be probably expecting nearly a full house in Pearse Stadium Saturday, with the fact that the Dubs are down there in football. It'd be a cracking double header. That maybe the Galway lads might rise to something and maybe turn it into a war like the Dublin match did turn into last weekend. It was looking at Johnny Murphy got a lot of criticism for the amount of cards he dished out, but we saw some of the offences maybe that were going on, and maybe the frustrations that maybe that it was that type of game that was hard to manage. With a lot of familiarity between both teams, and Liam Dunn, who maybe could have been telling a few of the Dublin lads what gets under the skin of a couple of Galway lads, and it looked like it worked.
Yeah, well, sure. When Micheál Donoghue was over the Galway team, they used to have serious rows with Dublin, and once it actually spilled out on the street on a night out, actually. The club season gets underway this weekend. There's been a lot of changes in the management teams across the board in Tipperary, hasn't there?
North Tipperary seems to be pretty settled. The clubs up this neck of the woods, not too many changes. Killadangan going the same again. Nina. Killer One probably has a new change. Thomas Williams is manager. You probably know Adrian O'Sullivan used to be involved at the Dublin Camogie team. Yeah, he's involved as coach, so I suppose that's a change.
Boris Lee under 20s as well.
Yeah. Boris Lee have John Connors from Thurles. He was the coach of the Patrick's Well team last year. They got to the county final actually under Eamon Kelly. Eamon Kelly is in Lockmore, so more of a switch up in the mid Tipperary. Have Liam Dunphy and James.
You call it Tipperary mid or Boris Lee? You call him Boris Lee?
Oh no, sorry, no. I said more of a shift in mid Tipperary, so. Well, sure, you're ex-mid back in the day. He started out there before he came home, so not a good side.
True enough.
Yeah, so who was it? Yeah, Eamon Kelly and Lockmore. So that'd be interesting. If Frankie McGrath's had a great run out of Lockmore. Generally, they always stayed at home, so that'll be an interesting one. Shane Keegan and J.K. Brackens. I know people would know him more from soccer, but he's a big hurling man. He's involved with Laois GAA as a coach. Anybody else in North Tip that see change? Not really. Liam England is still with Ross Gray. Ger Cunningham still with Temple-Derry. So it's good to get it up and running. I think it's, even though the weather doesn't look hectic, it is the time to get moving. Plenty of hurling this St. Patrick's Day to get out and about. Loads of matches across the weekend. Yeah,
the format's changed a little bit as well.
Division 1 is sort of, last few years it was 2 groups of 6, but now it's gone to 3 6s. It's 18. I do think they've got to bite the bullet at some stage, the county board, and devise a league where there's promotion and relegation. Stop this thing and constantly changing it, and just allow it to settle in and bed in. And I think a lot of the trouble with the Tip League is that it's optional to take part in. Kilshean and Kilcash have not entered a team. I think they're the only one of the major clubs that haven't entered a team in the league, which is it's not a good look. You think even if after a couple of years you'll find your level. Kilshean might be a intermediate club, but if they fell to Division 4 or 5 in hurling, at least you're playing something rather than playing nothing. Your fringe players are playing some bit of hurling, and you will find your level. So I'm kind of disappointed that, because I think clubs will buy into leagues properly after a while. Like there was a proposal at the November meeting that promotion and relegation would come in for Division 2 and 3, 1 and 2, but that was under the old format of 12 team Division 1, 12 team Division 2, but now it's 18 team Division 1, 11 Division 2. Like I don't know how you square that. So I would like to think maybe next November, like there's a concerted effort to devise a proper league that will go promotion relegation every year after that, and everybody knows what they're facing into.
Yeah, like in Dublin, league is taken seriously.
Yeah.
You know, will it ever get to that stage, do you reckon? Like,
I don't think it ever will, but I do think there was a structure there the last couple of years where, and I suppose COVID was the killer, but they had just hit on a Division 1 and 2 structure where there's promotion and relegation, and clubs were, especially Division 2 teams. I know in 2019, Laura won a Division 2 and they got up to Division 1 and had one game in Division 1 before COVID hit. And like that was a big deal, getting up to play a lot of, as a Premier Intermediate team, then getting up to play the strong clubs. And then, of course, no league for probably a couple of years. And then it went back to old style league where it was based. Sure. I don't think the county board were confident enough that it was settled back into it. Like, so I think sometimes the CCC are confident in trusting the clubs to get on with it. I do, like, there hasn't been as many walkovers conceded in the last couple of years. I do think there's been a greater buy-in from clubs, and I do think once you have a promotion and relegation element in it, there definitely won't be as many walkovers conceded.
Yeah, fair enough. So then the Tipperary footballers, they're facing Wexford this weekend. So where do you see the season going for the Tipperary footballers? What do we want to get out of it at this point?
You'd like to finish
in the league, I should say.
You'd like to finish in some bit of a high. You'd like minimum, I think, try and win one of your last two games and have some bit of confidence. We haven't actually played that badly. I know people might say you only drew with Waterford and drew with London, two of the worst teams in it, but we lost to Laois by a point. All those games, we've taken 2 points out of 6 from those games. We could have easily taken 6 points out of 6. We were ahead in all those games, but didn't close them out. That tells me we're a side lacking leadership, lacking a bit of maturity in the home stretch. So we could, just say if Tip beat Wexford at the weekend, not been in the bounds of the Tipper on 6 points, you're going to Leitrim with the outside chance of promotion. Because you could beat Leitrim and get to 8. You have them in the head-to-head then, and you'd have Wexford on a head-to-head. We've already beaten Longford. Tip. If you Tip get to 8 points, having beaten Leitrim, Longford, and Wexford, there's a fair chance they'll be promoted on a head-to-head. If it's a 3-way tie, I think Tip's score difference is weak enough. But because we'd have done head-to-head, I think be interested to see how the last 2 weeks, particularly, they'll have got a lot of good training time in after the Wexford game, and I think Saturday night against Wexford Waterford against Saturday night against Wexford in Templetuohy. I think there's a good chance of a win there. Be interested if Stephen O'Brien is back. Conor Senior is getting close. Can we get more guys closer to the full strength? I think Stephen O'Brien's been a huge loss. Just his presence, his leadership, his physicality. I would have thought if Stephen played the last 3 matches, we would have at minimum have had 2 more points on the scoreboard. Whether we might have turned those 2 draws into wins or maybe got something out of the Laois game, is just we're at that stage at the moment where Tip can't be afford to be without key players.
Yeah,
and especially with so many young guys in there and inexperienced guys in there.
Yeah, and in terms of the under-20s, then you've been doing a bit of a deep dive into the under-20s, their prospects, how they're trying to develop for the future. If you want to give us a bit of insight.
Yeah, they're the championship starts there for them next Friday night against Limerick, under-20 championship. I suppose that straight knockout format has gone now. They're getting the same format as the minor footballers have gotten the last few years, where we always say the Tip, Clare, Waterford and Limerick play a round robin, and the top 2 go in to play Cork and Kerry in another round robin. So unlike last year where last couple of years where Tip were one and done, like they lose the first round to Clare and it was all over. Whereas now they're guaranteed 4 games. You get the 3 round robins, plus potentially you get another mini round robin as Cork and Kerry. If you finish 3rd and 4th in the first phase, you play a final, and you go into an All-Ireland B competition. So they're guaranteed 4 matches. Which that's from Niall Fitzgerald's point of view. I was speaking to him this week. He says it's massive. Like, the more games these young players get, the better. More training time, more experience. I'd be optimistic that Tip would get out of the first phase and get to play Cork and Kerry, and at least get maybe 5 games in the competition, which would be great. And just thought, like, what they're carrying over 17 players from last year, which is encouraging. They have 20 players on the panel that are eligible for next year. So they're playing the long game. And that was an interesting thing he told me, that when they were devising their panel, if like they would have ranked all the players from 1 to 36. But if a player in his final year was in the 21 to 36 bracket, up against the player who had another eligibility for next year, the player had eligibility for next year was kept on. Like they'd rather have the guy maybe in his second last year who they could maybe develop again for next year. Like, it's all about bringing the guys through. So that was very interesting. They're sacrificing potentially maybe having more guys up to the age, maybe wins in terms of developing players, which is probably what Tipperary have to do at underage level now. Like, you've got to be bringing guys through, maybe sacrificing results in terms of development.
And like, I suppose there's always that kind of view to, do we develop a player here for a few years and then, they're lost to hurling? If you're in charge of football, it must feel like that. Is that something that's always on their mind where they're thinking, geez, who are we going to lose next year?
There's an interesting argument in that. I don't know what you think. That do you just concentrate on the guys who know you will stick with football all the way through, or do you get the best players available? Fear maybe just say, I'm not going to say anyway. Just there probably will be a couple of guys on the under 20 football panel this year that will be on the under 20 hurling panel next year, but maybe mightn't go on to play inter-county hurling for Tip, but will still be. I still think you take the risk of having a bit of grounding in underage football, lose them for a year or two to under 20 hurling, but they can still come back and be under. I suppose Paddy Creedon is probably the perfect example, where he had the grounding in underage football, went in with Tip under 20 hurlers, got a year with the Tip senior hurlers. It didn't work out for him. Maybe he might come back down the road at the hurlers, but he was able to fall back into footballers at senior level and be pretty good. Like, so I do think the latter way is probably still worth persevering from a Tip point of view. That it's like, you look at the Tip senior hurlers, like Seamus Kennedy has played on senior inter-county football. Willie Connors has played senior. There's a good few guys that Conor Bowe has played senior inter-county football. So, sorry?
Mikey O'Shea, or is he still part of the senior hurling?
No, I don't think he's dropped it. But the Mikey O'Shea maybe could come back in with the senior footballers. That it's more of a risk. Like, I would say it's a risk worth taking, maybe losing them for a year to under 20 hurling, or maybe senior hurling for a year, but you might get them back if it doesn't work out at that on the hurling side of things. Okay, whereas if you have no grounding in underage football, it's harder for you to come back in.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Just in terms of the Camogie then, geez, what a win for Tipperary to go down to Páirc Uí Rinn and beat the All-Ireland champions. 210 to 110. No matter what, that's a great boost psychologically.
Yeah, and to do it coming from behind, like 2-2 to a point in injury, in more or less an injury time, like that's a great win. Like, and I'm sure they were bouncing out of the dressing room all dolled up to go to Cáte Van's wedding. I was wondering why the match was at 12 o'clock last Sunday. I said, could they not have maybe rearranged it for 5 or 5:30 in the Páirc Uí Chaoimh as a curtain raiser? But Cáte Van was getting married on Saturday, so a lot of them were hightailing it. I think Dennis Kelly said there was a lot of them had their dresses in the dressing room. You had some very glamorous ladies walking out of Páirc Uí Chaoimh or Páirc Uí Rinn last Saturday afternoon heading for.
That would have been quite the spectacle.
Absolutely, there's been some great photographs. It's a pity now that it wasn't done. Like, but I know I'm sure they were in great form back in the Woodlands afterwards for that wedding. So I just congratulations to Claude and her partner. I can't call him as his name. Correct me on that, but yeah, look, like to have, I think this Tip League campaign so far. I think I said it after the Waterford game. I feared that it was going to be tough for Tip, considering Caught was away. There was a few injuries. Now they've beaten Galway and Cork back to back. They've Kilkenny to play and a Clare to play. Like Clare are struggling a bit. You'd think there's a good chance maybe you get a win over Clare that gets the 6-3 wins. Maybe if you picked off a win or a draw against Kilkenny, you might get to a league final. So definitely they're developing nicely. And just that, to win being the team that's finished strongly, I think that's massive, absolutely huge. Like, and to do it in Cork, like, fantastic. Like, so they're motor nicely. Emer McGrath flying again.
But you want to be a team that never gives up, Shane. And like, this is why I'd say there's some positives out of the senior men's game against Limerick, and here as well. You don't give up. Yeah. That's a great quality.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, you just don't know if you're still in the fight with 2 or 3 minutes to go, like that. You can always hit a team with a sucker punch, and that was, who's to say like that? If Dan McCormack's shot had gone over and Tip were 3 points down, like suddenly Jake gets that goal, and you're suddenly against the run of play, end up leaving Cork with a result you probably didn't deserve. Like, sometimes games, they go like that, you just stay in the fight. And like, you think over the years, like maybe bar the 2019 Munster final, have Tip actually ever been well beaten by Limerick? I don't think. We've always been in the fight. It's been down the stretch where we've struggled. But in fairness, Limerick have tended to do that to everybody. They've always seemed to have the answer down the stretch. Even in the tight games against Limerick, they've always found a way to work a scoring chances, if you know what I mean. They never panicked. Like, so like, I don't think it's a Tipperary problem with Limerick. I think everybody is trying to find the answer against them, and particularly in second halves.
And like, I remember, like, going back the last 3 or 4 years, conversation we've had, certainly something I've been hot on, is the idea of unloading the bench, almost planning for we're going to bring on a load of energy in the middle area. And I know we were supposed to be talking about the Camogie, but just back to Tip again, there was a change made at half time, then changes on the 46th, 2 in the 57th and the 65th. I'd actually say that, again, the issue there is maybe not making the substitutions quick enough. That, okay, like, Limerick are controlling the game here. And I know you always like to keep...
Or you make a sub that nobody expects, or you maybe... I assume Tip have all the same access to stats that all the teams do in terms of player load. And like, we heard a lot last year about Tom Morrissey, and that he was in the red zone around 52 minutes, and that's why he was taken off for Cathal O'Neill. And even though you were wondering why would you take Tom Morrissey off, that he's such a fit guy, but I'm sure Tip have access to all that stuff for their own players as well.
Yeah, but just again back to the way Tip used the subs, the first one half time, the second one, like, Kendi only came off because the injury happened. Yeah. So I mean, I think in a way you might look at it and say, we're going to play these lads for 70 plus minutes, as many of them for as long as possible, just to get used to it. Can you hack it? Can you go another 10 minutes compared to the last time? But if you were coming to championship, would you be saying after 45 minutes, or sorry, 40 minutes even, we're going to unload 4 subs now, you keep one in the back pocket in case you get an injury, and maybe by the hour mark, you're like, Joe, what, we're throwing on the next guy, just to get that sort of wave of energy into the team. So, I mean, I do feel like it's going to have to get to that point, because that's been a topic that's kind of come to mind for me for the last 3 or 4 years. You just, like, Limerick will probably look at it and think, our final quarter, like, obviously they make a big burst in third quarters, but our final quarter, we need to always finish strong. Yeah, everyone probably always feels like they need to. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that happens there. But just back to the Camogie team. Who's impressing you this year? I mean, you call me biased towards Burris Lee, but how's Nicole Walsh been doing in the goals, for example? That's been a big change this year.
Yeah, I think she's settling. I think that the Cork goal at the weekend was one of those. I think it was one of those that just landed just under the crossbar, and I think she dropped it in. But look, you're going to have teething issues there at that level, but I believe she's settling in quite well. Like, it's tough. Like, sure, she's primarily an outfield player, and look, Cueva Burke is still recuperating from the cruciate she suffered last year. They made the decision not to retain Anya Slattery, so obviously that's going well. I think that just a couple of tactical switches, like Claudia McIntyre moving her to wing back, like, because she's so quick, and like probably sometimes when you play her a wing forward or corner forward, if she gets the ball in half turn, she's gone. But sometimes you can get penned in, whereas you get the ball and wing back, you can really take off. You have a lot more room. So from that point of view, pretty good. Like Karen Kennedy coming back from injury, and I suppose her coming on in the second half really sort of solidified things, and we're sort of half expecting she's going to play more of an attacking role this year, because I think Tipperary are not short of defenders. Like, and I suppose Claudia Quirk didn't play last weekend as well. I think she was a bridesmaid for the wedding, so like she like they were really down numbers. I think Ellen Caneen came on, a minor from last year, did pretty well. So it does look like Emer McGrath is really relishing taking on the scoring leader role from Cotavan as well. So look, you have to be pretty happy the way things are going. And then you look at the junior team under Bill Mullaney, they've gotten through to a league final. So like that's encouraging for them. The minors are 2 wins from 2 in the Munster champions, and they've beaten Kilkenny and Galway already in the championship. Great win away to Galway last weekend, away from home. So they're in good shape to get to a league semi-final. And look, you have to think the first 3 months of the year, things are going pretty well for Tipperary Camogie. Like, they're really making strides, like, and there's a real feel-good factor around the thing. That's not to say, look, they're putting themselves in contention to win things now. It doesn't mean they definitely will, but you have to put yourself in contention to win things. And I think, like, if the juniors were to win a league, it would be great. I think the seniors could do with getting to a league final, just experience and things like that, and like they have a great shot. I think they're playing away on Saturday week. If they win that, they're in a great spot to make to a league final.
Okay, well, look, that's pretty much it for the show. A reminder that the Nina Guardian is available now in shops locally, and you can see Seamus Kennedy struggling with injury there is on the back page. There's plenty of coverage of the game against Limerick and preview on Antrim as well.
You going hurling this weekend?
What's that? Are
you going hurling this weekend?
I'll be going watching hurling. I won't be playing hurling, if that's what you're suggesting. I won't be making it up to Antrim.
Dublin Westmeath is in your wheelhouse this Saturday, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to go to Parnell Park for that. You've got probably, what will it take, 3.5 hours to get up to Antrim?
3 hours, yeah. And I have to come back too, because Laura's first league game is Sunday morning, so I can't even stay over. Like, I have to be back for that. So, it'll be interesting to see that Dublin's record against Westmeath is good, but I think Westmeath would be saying, God, they're Dublin ripe for the picking off there, like, and maybe finish with two league wins, and you're like, that McDonagh Cup is really bubbling up nicely, isn't it? Offaly would be good. Laois, like Kerry have probably fallen off a bit. Down actually are playing some good stuff. Like, it's
a couple of decisions went against them, didn't they? Against Carlow.
Yeah. Like, and I even think Carlow. Jesus, who were they playing first? They were playing Galway. It's a dirty match. You'd love if they maybe got a Dublin or an Antrim first, like, but wouldn't be surprised if wouldn't say a call. I don't think they'll beat one of the big teams. I think they'll make it difficult.
Yeah, you'd hope that there'll be. I mean, obviously, it won't be as competitive as Munster, but you'd hope to be more of a competitive flavour.
Like Antrim look like they'll probably struggle a bit this year.
Yeah, they're just down too many players. Yeah. But look, who knows? Okay, that's it for the show this week. We'll be back again next Wednesday. Shane, take it handy.
Roger.